Hello and welcome. Today we're going to tackle a really tough but super important topic: how addiction messes with our ability to make decisions. We're going to get into the science of it and hopefully uncover the why behind the struggle, a why that can lead to a lot more compassion and ultimately to recovery. It's a question that cuts deep, right? It's asked with so much pain and frustration, not just by the people who love someone struggling, but by the person themselves. If you've ever thought that or felt that, you are definitely not alone. And this right here is the absolute key. We have to shift our thinking. This isn't about someone being weak or not having enough resolve. It's a neurological condition. The science gives us a much clearer picture of what's really going on inside the brain. So, what we're really talking about here is a decision-making trap. Addiction is, at its core, a disorder of decision-making. The very parts of our brain that help us weigh consequences and think about the future, well, they get hijacked. This quote from Dr. Shahram Heshmat it nails the central conflict. The brain's whole reward system gets rewired. It starts screaming for the immediate fix, that instant relief, and it completely drowns out the long-term goals. Things like your health, your family, your job. It creates this constant, exhausting war inside your own head. So how does this even happen? I mean, it's pretty complex, but to make it easier to understand, we can break it down into three major ways that addiction causes the brain's functions to just break down. Okay, first up, self-control. For most of us, self-control is that little voice that says, hey, maybe don't eat that entire pint of ice cream, you've got goals. But in an addicted brain, that voice becomes a tiny whisper, while the craving for that immediate hit is a deafening roar. It makes impulsive choices feel almost impossible to fight. And then you've got willpower. You know, we like to think of it as this endless well of strength we can just draw from, but all the research shows it's much more like a muscle, or maybe even better, a battery. And that battery can and does run out of juice. Seriously, just think about your phone battery. Now imagine constantly fighting off cravings, dealing with overwhelming stress, maybe not sleeping. All of that drains your willpower battery down to zero. When it's empty, there's literally no energy left to resist. So telling someone to just try harder at that moment, it's like telling them to make an urgent call on a dead phone. The power just isn't there. And if that wasn't enough, addiction also creates this thick psychological fog. Your brain gets conditioned, so just seeing a certain place or smelling a certain smell can set off these insane cravings. Then there's this all-or-nothing thinking, where one tiny slip-up feels like a catastrophe, which can easily turn a small lapse into a full-blown relapse. And denial? It's not just someone being stubborn. It can actually be a neurological issue, an impaired self-awareness caused by the substance itself. So, when you put all that together, the shut self-control, the drained willpower battery, and that dense psychological fog, you can start to see this brutal, vicious cycle. And that's why just stopping is so incredibly hard. It's why relapse isn't a sign of failure. It's often a painful but expected part of the recovery journey. And that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? If the very tool you need to get better, your ability to make good decisions, is broken, where do you even start? What's the way out? Well, the good news is there is a path. It just takes a totally different approach. See, the solution can't be just demanding that someone make better choices. The real solution has to be about healing the brain's ability to make those choices in the first place. That means you have to work with the realities of the addicted brain, not just fight against it. And this is where we see a big difference in treatment models. On one hand, you've got traditional inpatient rehab. It often pulls you completely out of your life, which can make it really tough to go back and apply what you've learned when you're suddenly facing all your old triggers. But then there's an alternative, like RecoveryCNT's outpatient model, which does the exact opposite. It's designed to weave treatment right into your daily life, so you can tackle triggers as they happen, with a therapist's support, all while you keep up with work and family. The whole idea behind a model like this is to build success that actually lasts, you know? It's practical. Instead of asking you to hit pause on your entire life, it's all about helping you build a life of recovery right inside the one you're already living. So here's how it works, and it's pretty straightforward. First, you can access treatment right from home, which is huge. Second, you work with therapists on your actual real-time triggers as they come up. This isn't about practicing in a sterile bubble. It's about building coping skills for the real world, skills that actually stick. And what this does is empower you, leading to much higher rates of long-term success. Now, here's something that stops so many people from even trying: the cost. But a critical piece of the puzzle is making sure help is accessible. For instance, a provider like RecoveryCNT is in network with all the major health insurance companies. For most people, that means there's very little or even no out-of-pocket cost. That financial barrier is just gone. So if you, or maybe someone you love, is stuck in this cycle, please know that just understanding what's going on is a massive first step. And reaching out for help, that's the next one. This is so important to hear. Addiction is incredibly isolating. It makes you feel like you're the only one, but you are not alone, and you don't have to go through this by yourself. There are people who get the science, who get the struggle, and are ready to help with real compassion. Making this call could honestly be the single most important decision you make. It is 100% confidential, and it's free, just to talk. The number is 1732-484-9661. There's a trained recovery guide on the other end of that line, and they're just waiting to listen. You can also check out their website for more information at RecoveryCNT.com. Really, the big takeaway here is this. Yes, addiction impairs decision-making, but the one decision to seek help, that's a decision you can still make. And it's the one that lets you start healing your brain and, step by step, take back control of your life.